Hey guys, it's Will and Chris actually, out here at Knoyer Garden Center in Ankeny, Iowa. We are having a little kind of class seminar today on how to plant aquatic plants, you know, kind of how the way we do it. So we've got this really awesome display that we did last year. Last year. It's got a bio bowl, it's got a bunch of fountain pieces, it's got a pondless, and we're gonna kind of show you and go over how we do these plants as far as, you know, bare root right into the gravel and that kind of stuff. Obviously the only thing we don't have is a pond, but we'll talk about it. It's the exact same process. This, you know, we're just doing it here because then we don't have to stand inside of a pond.
We're planting, the goal today is to plant this feature. A couple of things here is obviously we're, you know, obviously rock heavy, fountain heavy. We want to soften this stuff down. So, you know, finding some of the crevices that we can plant up. The other thing is, like, this is our bowls. We put these on some of our ponds for extra filtration, but this is, like you can see, like an annual. We're gonna pop this up for sure. And then the nooks and crannies, planting along the stream. We're gonna have a lot of fun, basically. You can take this and then go back to your pond. Obviously, we're not doing like a water lily. We don't have a pond here and stuff like that, but through shallow water plants. There's some annuals back there we'll plant up. Do some impatiens.
Big personal preference, but like for me, I'm not a big landscaper. I don't have time. I have a 3-year-old. He destroys everything anyways. So I love my annuals. I want that color. I want the color fast. And then for your water feature, whether it be pondless or pond, they have great benefits. Like plants are part of that ecosystem approach that we do because they absorb the extra nutrients just like algae. But the best thing about the tropicals is that they absorb it faster, right? Because they're constantly in bloom or growing. That's why those floater plants are so good, is because they're spreading so fast. So that's why I like to go more on the tropical side of things, mainly just for the way I have my garden set up. And then also they have a little higher benefit factor to the pond itself because they're absorbing so much more nutrients because they're growing faster. So
yeah, should we just head back and we'll grab a cart and we'll just start load up and we'll see what we can figure out and plant. Water plant the area. We are going to take a field trip and find some other plants that aren't out in this area. Grab a tag and see if I can. But a lot of times when you grab a water plant, look at the tag. It's going to talk about your, you know, how tall it's going to get. You know, environment, does it like sun, shade, all that kind of stuff. Usually on a water plant, and this tag doesn't have it, I forget what I got here, elephant ear, you're also gonna see like depth of water it wants to be in. On like lilies, you know, typically you're in that 16 to 20 inch range, it's gonna tell you that. On the marginals, which we're gonna be using today, are your shallow water plants, you'll see like 3 to 5 inches on something. This means the plant will grow in that. Usually not the best place for that plant to start. So we like to plant, we'll get out there and we'll show you, but we like to plant a little bit higher. They'll establish it and then they'll grow in the deeper water. If you just take one of these small plants and stick them in 3 to 5 inches of water, sometimes they don't do so well. So we're gonna start them off where they're a little bit out of the water a little bit, the roots are wet, and they'll grow in the deeper areas like in a pond. For example, I didn't see any iris out here, but your water iris, a lot of them will say 3 to 5. They're gonna like a shallower water at first.
Cattail of like this variety, where it's a more ornamental version, they're just a higher maintenance plant is the most important thing. Like if, you know, that cattail, get that stuff out of your feature as fast as possible. They're one of the only plants I've ever seen actually, like the root system will pierce a liner. And they're just a total nightmare to maintain because their root system is like a carpet.
They can get through the liner?
Yeah.
We've seen it, yeah. And if you like think about a retention pond, if you drive by a retention pond and they're not maintained, cattail gets in there, they spread so quickly. I have a lot of people asking about like using natives. I love native plants, but natives do really well sometimes, and sometimes they do a little bit too well. So they'll go a little bit crazy. So that being said, like here's a great cardinal flower, which goes in the garden. That can also be planted in water. That's a native plant, I'm pretty sure. So some of our favorites. Great stuff. You guys know what this is? This is a ground cover. creeping Jenny, but how's it pronounce it? Lacimachia. Everyone recognize it?
I can have some men on my steps.
Yeah. So this is gonna be awesome for especially that the pot, because it's gonna trail over the sides. But this is why I also draw that you can use this as a ground cover in the landscape. It spreads really well. It's kind of a pain, but we like to use it along the edge of your pond for your rock work. It'll soften that rock work. It will grow out.
Okay. Knoyer also grows some of their own stuff. So like the creeping Jenny, they've probably got a blue rush in there. That kind of stuff where it can be used both on, you know, terrestrial and aquatically. They're constantly growing, so they've started getting more of that and doing it themselves rather than here, because pond plants over the last couple of years have been hard to get. So I know I've had a good number of talks with Kyle. He doesn't really get to pick what he gets. It's just kind of given to him. So like they have a lot of annuals, but you know, when you do get your sweet flag and all this kind of stuff that comes with it, this corkscrew here that Chris is putting in, you know, it's just like anything. You can divide it, keep it, and move it around your pond. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and that's kind of why I mentioned the cattails from the ditch. It's because there's plenty of people that will just kind of go to a retention pond and find plants and bring them in. You know, arrowhead's a pretty common one that people will. You can probably walk across the street to GMAC right now and find some, that kind of stuff. The pickerel rush, those kind of all take off, so you can use them. But yeah, if it has the word tail in it, I avoid it.
Anyone know recognize that? Any idea what that is? So this one's zone what, 7? 7 to 10. This is a pitcher plant. It's carnivorous.
Well, I've seen those things before that they eat flies.
Yeah, so it's a carnivorous plant. I actually, my old pond, we just moved, but I had one of these. It's zone 7. It's been there 3 years, hasn't died. So I just have it in the shallow water. It's a specimen plant. We might put one of these out there. There's actually a whole bunch of different varieties. So you can go online. They don't stock a ton of them, but you can get a whole bunch of different varieties of pitcher plants. I think they actually are native down in Louisiana. Some of these are. I believe. I have to check that. You guys know what this is, right? You do, right? Anyone know what this is?
I've had them before. I can't think.
Yeah, it's called water hyacinth. These are floating plants.
Oh.
So,
Like for the pots.
yeah, these will work. We'll root them in, right? Because they'll try right outside. So these just float in like ponds. These are actually illegal in some states. For example, I think in Texas you can't buy or sell these things.
Oh.
They're tropical, and they basically water about 80 degrees. It'll
That's actually a really fun one.
basically double every 3 to 5 days. So we were talking to Shane. So Shane and I were talking earlier. He's used these in his biofalls, and then by midsummer they're just back in there. You can't get them to bloom. So they get an awesome purple flower on them right here. They only flower for about a day. But they're constantly.
One that's pretty common. This one is like from.
They're constantly reproducing. What they do is you'll find. Trying to find one on there, and I don't see one.
And it's basically like this one.
You'll see like a little tuber thing come off the side. I say tuber, I don't know if that's technically right. You have a little growth come off the side, and then you have a baby plant next to it. So if you use them, you just have to keep an eye on them that they don't go crazy. And what we've had clients do before is they'll put them in the biofalls, forget about them, then they'll call us in like August because their pond's leaking. We'll go out there, and that they've multiplied so much that they basically dammed up the biofalls, the water's just running out the back or something.
So you can thin them out then?
Yeah, just compost them. Just don't go throw them in a body of water. Just throw them away, compost them, whatever. But like we'll put a couple in a pond, and you'll start with 2 or 3, and you'll have like 300.
And then it's constantly.
But in summer, but they're heavy feeders. They actually use them in
Really good for plants.
water treatment facilities.
Yeah.
So, like we were saying earlier, tropicals use heavy feeders, so they'll pull a lot of nutrients out, help keep our ponds clean. But they'll be pretty cool, and they can float in the pond, but you can also just like kind of anchor them in the gravel and just use them for a little as they start multiplying out. So the creeping Jenny's pretty invasive. This is like super invasive. So this would be good for a container. This stuff will go like crazy. But this would be great. So I warn you, I'm not like a landscape designer, but like, you know, you put this variegated color with this. That'll look good, right? Becky's agreeing, so. This one I did last year in my pond. I thought it was super cool. Got some good color, and this might, yeah, that's gonna look good together.
Even when we do these impatiens and everything, you should be able to do impatiens if it's in the full sun, because it's always going to have wet feet. So like same thing. Another one I did last year was a Boston Fern. I didn't even take it out of the pot. I literally just dropped the pot right in on my shelf, and it exploded and went crazy. And then you just pick it up and you bring it inside in the winter, and you have this big, you know, pretty flower or plant. So you can kind of cheat things. And I always like the impatiens or really any annual like that, because it's like, if it dies, what are you out? Right. $5, $6, you know, they're gonna come in a 6-pack, yeah. So they're, yeah, $7. So like, it's not too bad. And for whatever reason, you know, sometimes I have some that do really, really good, and then I have some that do really bad. So it can be a hit or miss. I normally put about, I think it's 6 to 9 in my feature, just along my stream, a couple in the pond and stuff like that. And yeah, 2 years ago I had like one whole corner of my stream just died for whatever reason. But everything else looked pretty good. I've had it before where they're like massive, you know, they're like huge and you can actually hardly see any water. So some years they do phenomenally and some years they don't. But yeah, I know of some people that have done hostas right in their pond. We have some customers that have like the wetland filter. They'll do their tomato plants or vegetables and stuff in them. They're just so like nutrient rich that everything goes crazy. So I barrel everything and I'll run out to my truck, and what I do is I just have my 5-gallon bucket with about a gallon of water or so. I pull it out, I break it all off, get it wet so there's very little soil that you're putting back in your pond. And then basically just, yeah, lock it in. So yeah, that's how we do it. Even for you with your pond, like that's how we do lilies as well. Basically the theory, I mean, it's not theory, but they don't get wrapped up as much. You can't have a root-bound pot that you're competing with, but then also it's promoting that root growth across the whole pond and everything else to absorb as much nutrients as you can get.
So you can put the lilies, you don't pot them in the pond?
Nope.
Just throw them in there with
Yep, I get in the pond and I get in the pond and I just move gravel back, drop that tuber in there, and then cover it up with gravel. And so sometimes it can be a total pain, and you might have to use bigger rocks or cobbles or something like that, depending on your fish load. You know, some fish will pick on your lilies and move them around. So if you don't have that problem, then yeah, I just put them right in there. You know, you can get a 2 to 3 inch tuber of those lilies, and within normally about a week or two, they'll establish and kind of take off. I like to go anywhere from 18 to 24 inches. If you're a little bit deeper, they'll do it. The deepest I've ever done is 4 feet. So, I mean, they're not crazy healthy lilies by any means, but they produce, I mean, they get their pads and they get their flowers, just not quite as much.
Do they need full sun?
No, mine at home don't get full sun. So a lot of it's just purely based on water temperatures. So it might take longer for your pads to come up or your actual lily flowers to come out, because it's just, you know, you have to wait more towards July or something, mid-June, for your water temperatures to get warm, and that's my case. My pond is normally one of the first ones like ice-free, so I get early clean out on them, but I don't necessarily get good lily growth until end of June, early July, because everything leafs in and then I'm in shade and my water temperature stabilize. So it's kind of a flip a coin, that kind of thing. You know, everything has its pros and cons, I guess.
I've been leaving my basket and I can't get them to winter over.
How deep are you?
About that deep, 18 inches.
Yeah.
Take that one.
You could try take some of, I mean, if you're losing them every year anyways, you could try do it without, because they do get that bigger root system that can, and we do come across that where I'll see some, like, you know, I'm gonna call it frost damage or whatever, like when we're doing the clean out, some of that tuber, you know, you'll find some of it will be like dead, and then you'll have good growth in the middle and then more dead spots.
So on a stream, what I'm looking for when I'm going to plant is, for example, on this guy over here, obviously you don't want to stick stuff in the middle of the stream, slow moving water. We want to find crevices and stuff. Obviously, perfect spot. See this where my foot's at right there?
Yeah.
Perfect spot to plant. You want to put your stuff outside the water. When you're out in the hiking along the woods, a lot of times you'll see water entering, and it's not in the rapid here, it's going to be with the slower moving stuff.
Okay.
Think about that when you're planting. So we're going to find stuff like a spot like that. You can also, I'm going to show you how to create a spot. I'm going to do it on this other side. Just like in a landscape bed. Tall stuff in the back, short stuff in the front, right?
Okay.
Pretty. So let's do what do you think in this? These two together? Yeah. Different side? I'm gonna put this guy right here.
Oh. Okay.
And I'm gonna create a spot where Will's gonna put that guy right there. And over here, so we like to use this to soften like rock work, but this is perfect for a crevice. Like I said, it will get in the landscape bed and run a little bit on you. Not a terrible thing. But I'm pretty sure when there's a, like this, that liner's probably like that, and this is backfilled with gravel.
Oh.
So I'm assuming when I start poking around here,
Yeah.
I'm gonna either find or be able to create a little crevice. So another good spot is that is kind of open, you'll be able to plant light in the gravel. Behind rocks is another great spot to be able to plant.
Okay. So as long as they can get to water.
Yeah, the roots need water. So once I get underneath there, and a lot of time you're already gonna have this crevice. So now I've created this little void, right? You want to rinse this off, Will? Want to prep this for me? So I'm just going to pull it out. Will likes to get all the dirt off. He'll have a bucket of water. We took all off that dirt. Then I'll just work it right in here. So the key is not to jam it way down in there. I'm just going to get the roots wet. So if it's too deep, if I just put it in there, it's too deep, right? So all I'm going to do, take it right there, the roots are wet. And now I can just, I'm gonna use gravel to help hold this in place. And then you can just pull your mulch back in your rock. So now, that plant, what it's gonna do is it's gonna work its way, it'll work out of this a little bit, but it'll work its way. It'll start growing over here. It'll grow over this rock, it'll grow over this, and it'll work this whole corner right here. And it'll potentially make a couple of these rocks kind of disappear, naturalize. The most, what's the saying, how's it go? The most diverse ecosystem in the world is where water and land meet. And if you can basically make the transition from water to land less noticeable, it's going to be even more diverse, more natural looking when you're doing the water features. So that's an easy way. There wasn't a spot there. I created a spot for plants. You can do that with anything. This one's going to be a lot easier, right? This is ready for me, huh? So when we're building, sometimes we'll do what we call a little beach, or we've got a couple other names, but we try to build these in spots where, you know, if you can imagine like a hard rain and we get water running like crazy, this will push up in here, just push out debris out of, nature be like trees and stumps and a bunch of crap over in these corners. So we got a couple names, but this is a great spot for a plant like this guy. So you can see, I think I've got enough depth here. So I love small pots. When you get the huge pots, now you've got to create a huge crevice to get that in there. So you can see like right here, so if I planted like this, it's too deep, right? So I just want it just below, and then I'm going to help cover it with rock. So I'll throw a little bit more rock in there, right there. And it's just a matter of you just pull rock back up in here. And this would also be a great place for one of those impatiens if we wanted to do a tropical. But obviously this guy's he's just gonna do his thing right here, right?
The spiny one there, or?
No, it'll go in the landscape bed, and then it'll just do exactly what my creeping Jenny's doing. It'll start growing up at my old place that you went to.
Yeah.
It was just invading the rocks and starting to...
So would it be planted similar to the
Right
creeping
where that
Jenny?
spade is at.
I would find it, yeah, like right in this spot.
Oh,
And then it'll start spreading over these rocks. So
it doesn't need to be in the...
No, that's a landscape plant. That's a terrestrial plant.
Okay.
But it'll do its thing where it just spreads out, and it'll serve the same purpose of softening this
I
rock.
just saw that in
Yeah.
the old place.
So that area where I have a lot of them, it's very rock heavy because we're elevation wise, and I planted them right. I had them planted right behind there because they'll just start dropping over. So it'll start as that whole softening your rock. We put a bunch of your rock in your yard, and now we're gonna hide a bunch of it. So. If you're planting a stream, I've got obviously 2 different plants in that stream, and it's a short stream.
Yeah.
I would, if I had like a 20, 25 foot stream, I'd be trying to do creeping Jenny up along the stream in different spots.
Okay.
Just like basic landscaping, you want to plant in groupings.
Yep.
So
You mean alter where you put the creeping Jenny, or?
if I had a 25 foot stream, I would be tucking it, a spot on the right side, maybe 3-4 feet up. I'd do another one because it's going to spread, and it's going to, instead of like shotgunning just like a bunch of random plants in there, you're off something. So for example, Will, on this one, I really want something down on this guy right here that's going to create some interest, not just the floating plant. I was trying to find something with some height. Now I'm thinking I might put this guy down in here. We've got him up here. This will trail over. It'll trail over off this one. It'll look kind of cool.
Yeah.
My biggest fear on this would be damming this thing up, right? Good thing we got a maintenance guy, right?
Yeah.
So
Maintenance contract, I mean.
yeah, so we have a maintenance. We maintain this, so we'll just have to make sure that we don't cause it to leak. That's the biggest thing, like we've been talking about in these
Backing
pots.
up water.
Water comes out this way, just like Will said. If we block this thing out, the good news, if I make this one leak, I'm pretty sure it's going to stay in my system. So it's because this is all inside the liner. So I'm going to work this thing, I think, right over here, and then I'm going to try to work these. I don't know yet. I'm not. It'll buff out.
Nothing I can do about it. I mean, it's in there. I guess I can spray it out, but no.
So all I'm doing right now is creating that elevation. Hey.
But like with this, I'll put this almost out of water. So like, I don't want this fully submerged. I'm gonna try and get a little bit of my root mass in there. And then same kind of concept as even my aquatic ones where it's gonna tell you it wants 4 to 6. I'm gonna plant it high and then I'm gonna watch it grow into it. Because once it's established and huge and it's absorbing so much, it uses all of it. So like I'll have part of my impatiens at home that will be like 3 inches underwater in my stream. Like the crown of it and everything is shooting up and out. But they're also legitimately,
They're shrubs.
they're 2 feet in diameter by the end of the year. So
That's
it's
from one plant.
from this guy. Yep.
So,
So-
I like the water.
Yeah,
think
so
about
that's
it.
where I'll have it graveled. Like I'll just basically make a gravel ring around this, just try to keep it vertical, and only this much of that root mass in. Just a little bit. I'm not fully dunking it as if these ones you can see I've got just to the ground. This one you can kind of see my little shelf I'm building for it, as far as I'm just trying to keep it vertical with my gravel.
So you just wanted to tap it.
Pretty much. Yep, if I can get a 1/4 inch of this in there, you know, it's slightly easier in the stream or somewhere like this where you can really go high. Here I'm kind of limited with my bowl. But yeah, that's the, I don't go crazy as far as the depth. So yeah, that's a good point. And these plates here should do pretty good. Because sometimes either we forget to go inside and tell them we're gonna add water, or they forget to shut their fertilizer off, and that's hooked directly to their irrigation. So we get to fertilize the plants and algae and everything that comes in here. So these guys should do pretty good. I haven't seen how early I can go with impatiens. It's obviously too late this year, but I had green strawberries in my pond in like the 2nd week of March this year. And they came back from last year. They just had their roots in there because water temperatures were warmer than ground temps. So like some of my strawberry plants were already like green and actively growing. Now, like what Chris and I were talking about today, this one, with this, or in your case, your pondless, your water temperatures aren't going to stabilize as much as like my pond. The main body of water is underground, out of the sun, all of that. You have a lot of splash. All of this water is in contact with the air much more than my pond is. So, to your point of air temperatures, a fountainscape or a pondless is going to be affected more by it than my pond, or a big pond is going to be affected less by it because you have such a large volume of water.
Will, I'm gonna work some creeping Jenny unless you want it down in these crevices, just because it's
Working.
You can see right here. I'm gonna try to work it and get this carpet down here.
Yeah.
You're gonna get this. So part of it, we don't always have these dark features, which is.
Yeah.
But obviously you got to play with color. So I'm gonna put a few of these in here to see if I can get it to. So I see there's. I'm gonna go one here. I'm gonna go one over in this, and just try to get a carpet to come out of here.
Yeah.
And then I might put a third one, or I might find. Yep. Put one other one down here, so it looks like it's just one plant drifting through there. That's what you can say. It's supposed to get 6 to 8 inches.
That's my personal pond. So I
But it was
played with
super
that
cool.
one a lot as far as
I like it, so I'm gonna try to find a good spot just to work it along. So if we're planting like a basin, I can show you how this is gonna work. Once again, we just pull this off a bunch of this water, the dirt. I honestly don't always take all the dirt off. I just want to stick them in there and let it fall. So I'm gonna find a spot that this is gonna look. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Possibly like right here. So it's a nice little wet spot. I like crevices back in here, so I'm actually gonna work out. The thing I'm really worried about here are the kids are gonna harass it. And I'm just gonna work it right, see how it looks. It'll spread out in this little section right through this. I'm just gonna go right. I got water. You can see I got water. So we're gonna be wet. Stream right here, so I know it's always gonna be wet.
stuff
in the yard?
Not like creeping Charlie fast, no.
Okay, okay.
But like,
I mean, is that something that we would need to, depending on where you've got it, you'd want to keep it trimmed back as far as the stream, or does that make... Like,
No, it does. Most of these plants are not going to grow out and like dam up the stream, and that's what we're usually worried about. Is them. Most of them will just crawl on the edge. It's when it gets out. Whenever it gets annoying to you that there's too much, that's when you start. Just like any plant, right? Like you just say, "Hey, that's enough. You've had your fun."
we've got a couple bigger cobbles in there. It doesn't matter if it's hyacinth or lettuce, they float, and you have this, the root system. So I call it like the mother plant. I'll take my cobble and plant it somewhere like this and just weigh this one down. A common mistake is coming out and buying 5 or 6 of both water lettuce and hyacinth, and then in a week with warm water temperatures you have 500 or 600 of each, because they grow and they send off their roots and everything, and so that's why I call it like a mother plant. So I try to anchor this one because they do float. I wanted to try to stay in one section, because otherwise you're constantly pulling them out of your skimmer or intake bay or however you've got your pond set up, and you really just, they can become a maintenance problem. But yeah, that's why I try to anchor them over here. Okay, so there we are. We have this fountainscape behind us at Knoyer Garden Center in Ankeny, all planted up. We have a great variety of plants. We've got some floating plants that we can use in a unique way. We've got some tropicals, and we've got some hardy marginals kind of all over it. So some of it's going to come back, a good amount of it won't, but we really, you know, storefront, we want that pop factor. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this grow over the next couple of weeks. Looks like hopefully weather should cooperate, get some heat in there, and really let them take off.